Jon Laster, thank you for being on the Dave and Ed podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, Jon.
We are honored.
We are honored. You're our first comedian.
Our superb New York comedian.
Yes.
Cool beans. Okay, how's life, Jon? We'll start with that question.
Yeah.
It's as good as it can be, man. But I think that we all just kind of got used to this, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think we all just kind of got used to this no pants and bodega runs every once in a while to sustain ourselves. So I guess I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Where are you right now? Are you in New York City?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Brooklyn, man.
Okay.
Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, home of the deadliest fireworks in the world.
Nightly. Yeah. Give us your views on those nightly fireworks.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Man, where's the coronavirus when you need it? Oh, nobody can cough on these fuckers setting off these fireworks. It's a nuisance, man. But actually, after this weekend, man, it kind of calmed down. So maybe we're gonna get a smooth patch of air between now and the 4th of July.
Yeah. We, according to Wikipedia and such, you're originally from Denver, Colorado. But would you consider yourself a New Yorker now?
Oh man, I've been here for so long. Absolutely. You know what's so crazy about that? Breaking news on this podcast. I might be headed west soon. So this might be the end of my run in New York City.
You might be going to Hollywood?
Yeah, this might be the end of the road.
Wow, fingers crossed. That's so exciting. Okay. Yeah, exclusive.
Are you going to drink the baby blood when you go to Hollywood?
Oh my God. Did you
I hope not.
Wow, I'm sure you probably...
Those rumors are unsubstantiated. I just want to tell our viewers.
That's just a joke from Dave.
Yeah, wink, wink.
I assume you can't really talk much about. Is it a project or is it like a?
Yeah, writing gig.
Oh, cool.
But I like to wait until everything's done and I'm on a plane before I say I'm definitively, because I've had things fall through at the last minute on me before. So
sure.
Yeah, that's just the nature of the beast.
Absolutely. But let's go way back. Dave brought it up. Let's talk about your early days in Denver, Colorado. Like growing up there, in like when the 70s,
80s, 90s.
Sorry, you're younger. You're a lot younger. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah. I was thinking about it too. I was like, was I there in the 70s? I had to stop and thinking like, no, actually I wasn't. But but what were you asking?
Yeah, like those early days. What was it like living in Denver, Colorado, growing up in
a liberal mecca?
A liberal mecca, Dave calls it.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, man, coming up, man, I mean, I love Denver, man, but I grew up like during a real gangbang era in Denver, believe it or not. So it was a lot of, grew up in a real Crip neighborhood. Actually, everyone from Denver who was in Denver 15, 20 years ago probably knows, like the neighborhood that I was in. People, a buddy of mine, Noah Garden Schwartz, Dan Soder, those comedians, both of them are from Denver, but they'll tell you, both of them, if you ask them, they'll be like, John's neighborhood, if you mentioned it, people are like, don't go down there.
Okay, right,
yeah. Just have no business down there. But I mean, just like anything else, I guess just like the lockdown, you get used to it.
Right.
It's almost like we don't like that. You got used to the gangbang and the drive-bys, so it kind of was what it was.
Yeah.
But I still have love for Denver. My neighborhood, though, where I actually grew up, was so bad that Denver bulldozed it.
Wow.
Okay.
They literally bulldozed it. Said, nah, this can't be down here. So they
Did they warn you beforehand? Did you get a warning?
Well, they told us, you got to get out. Yeah. Imagine if they just bulldozed it while we were sitting there. Like, hey. They just bulldoze it while you sit there watching TV. You like, this neighborhood is getting bad. Motherfuckers just bulldozing houses while we sit there. But yeah, they gave us a short stint to get out of there and called it public domain. And then, Denver kind of wanted to be like, hey, let's pretend this didn't happen.
Right.
So the elementary school that I went to across the street, they tear everything down, then they gentrify the neighborhood, then they built them a brand new school. Same thing with the hospital, and you know, now it's white people in the neighborhood, so they built a new hospital, and just turned the neighborhood into condos.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very much like downtown Brooklyn, where once white people, you know, the kids of the parents who had done the white flight were like, fuck that, we don't want to live in this meth town. We're going back to the city. And then they started throwing black people out. So it's reverse white flight, basically. You know, like, hey, we don't, you know, black people, y'all got to get the fuck out of here. This is too close to the city. Just like downtown Brooklyn. You know what I mean? It's getting whiter and whiter as it pushes back. But we were very close to downtown Denver, like walking distance. And they were like, nah, we want condos down here. So they threw us all out.
Right. Wow. How was school? Were you like the funny kid in school?
Oh, I was the class clown from, and then a ball player. So I was the funny guy in the locker room. So, and I just didn't want to get up in the morning. That's why I wanted to do comedy. I was like, I want to own a bar or something. I just can't, you know, the snooze button was just too much.
Right.
And then I found out that I failed when I got to college playing ball. So the athletic student advisor, he was like, hey man, you know, you've been here for 5 years at the school I was at, for 4 years. He said, you've been here for 4 years. You haven't passed one class before 10 o'clock in the morning. How about we stop pretending and just book your classes from 11? And I was like, I'm glad y'all got the hint, because me in the morning don't get along.
Was it basketball or baseball, football?
Basketball, yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah, basketball.
Did you enjoy that, playing basketball?
Oh man, it was awesome.
Right.
It was awesome. You know what's so crazy about basketball? I think that's very similar to comedy, which I'm seeing during this lockdown, is the camaraderie. I think I miss more than the actual game. Wow. You know what I mean? So like right now, stage, do I miss being on stage every night? I don't mind. I could take a break, but I do miss the people. I miss being around the comedians. I miss the camaraderie.
The community.
Yeah, the community. I think more than the actual act. And the same was true for basketball.
Yeah.
So what was like the moment when you knew like, oh, I want to be a comedian. This is what I want to do. Like, was there a, because I read somewhere that like Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor are influences and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, you know, the moment that I knew was I actually wanted to be a talk show host.
Oh.
So I'm sitting there talking to the president of the school that I was at Colorado State, and we have a meeting, you know, and he was like, hey man, after you get out of here, I want to help you. So we're having this long conversation. And I said, yeah, man, you know, I want to be a talk show host, maybe do movies someday. So he said, well, who do you like on TV in the movies? So I list all these people, and he said 100% of them were stand-up comedians first.
Right.
Every single person you named, all of them started in stand-up, and that's how they got where they got. So I was like, oh, I'll do stand-up. My sister was in New York, fortunately, and so that gave me a couch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the rest was history. I came out here with one box and sat it down on the couch and just started bawling.
Right.
Yeah, because I knew that I was never going back, no matter what, under any circumstances. I was like, I'm going to live and die with this thing.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded to start getting booed every night.
Right. Yeah. What were your first impressions of coming to New York City?
Oh, I hated New York City.
Really?
You did not. Did you?
Really?
Hated it. I mean, you gotta think, man. I was one of the best 2, maybe 3 players in Colorado. Most people say the best coming out. So I was the man. I was prom king, college basketball, same thing. I went to
banging all the cheerleaders.
Yeah, man. and everything in between the cheerleaders. Like it was, college was a big party. And yeah, man. And then, you know, you're the captain of the basketball team at a D1 school. I was a stone's throw from the NBA. And then you go to a city where no one knows who you are.
Okay, right.
And it stinks, and you got to ride the subway. And I was making $50 a day, you know, and I'm sleeping on my sister's couch, and she won't let me have company, and you know what I mean. So my release was to be able to buy a 40 ounce, because my sister was also fucking taking most of my check, $50 a day. I think it was 200 something, 100 something bucks a week after taxes. It was just a little, 40 ounce, man, on the stoop after, which that was so humbling.
Right.
Where I was coming from. But again, I wasn't going back home, so I was just gonna have to ride that out.
Right. And what were your first impressions of the New York comedy scene? Were you into it when you got into
Oh man, I thought it was the greatest show on earth. I started on the hood circuit, so one of the things that made me believe that I could be a comedian was Def Jam. When I was younger, watching Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, you're just like, oh, those guys are just brilliant people. When I saw Def Jam, I was like, all those guys can't be funnier than me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Maybe I could, when I was younger watching Def Jam at home, I was like, oh, so maybe I could be a comedian someday. And I remember in college on New Year's Eve, they would play these Def Jam marathons. So it would be hours and hours of comedians. And then that gave me the confidence that like, I gotta be funnier than one of these guys.
Sure,
which
right.
means I could make it. Yeah. And then I got here to New York, and some of those guys I had seen on TV were right there on stage in front of me at the in the Village at the Boston.
Right. And when you started out, was there did you have to go through a process? Was there a lot of bombing, or were you funny immediately? Was it working immediately? Or?
My buddy, who's a comedian that I work with now at the Comedy Cellar by the name of Will Sylvance, first guy to put me on stage. And I remember it was silent.
Right.
Silent.
Do you remember any of your early jokes? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, I think the first time I went on stage, this is horrible. I don't know if I've ever told this, but I was telling some joke about I don't understand why people in New York City were wearing camouflage, because these camouflage pants, for some reason, New Yorkers love. And I was like, you guys should be wearing silver pants and hide next to the subway. And they just stared at me like, if you don't get the fuck out of here. And I remember shortly, not that long after I did a show, maybe my second or my third show, and it's going terribly. And I remember getting a giggle from the comedians, not from the crowd, of course, because I'm just bombing everywhere I go. But I remember I did this show shortly thereafter, and I said, hey guys, I know this isn't going well, because people are starting to talk. And I started on the hood circuit. So it's all black crowds,
right,
which either hate you or love you.
Right.
One of the other. They're not going to sugarcoat it. Yeah, they start talking, man, and they're like, get this guy the fuck out of here. And on the hood circuit, you have what's called a New Jack segment. So the newer comedians, like they put up like 3 new comedians in the beginning and then bring up another host, and they host the professionals. So I'm in the New Jack segment, of course. Guy brings me on stage. Will brings me on stage. And again, at the next place, he had told me to come to this other place. He said, I think you got something, even though I had bombed terrifically. So I go on stage and I'm dying. And I remember saying, hey, you guys don't worry. I'm going to do this impersonation of a comedian not doing well and leaving the stage. Okay. And they got quiet too. They got really quiet. They were like, what's this guy going to do? And I put the mic on the stool and got the fuck out of there. That was my impersonation of a comedian bombing and leaving the stage. And I got the hell out of there. But I stupid ass jokes like that, just bombing.
So like in those early days, was it a lot of kind of improv? Like were you kind of just making it up on the spot, or were you actually writing?
Oh yeah. Whatever I thought of that day that wasn't going to work, Right. And the sad part was, for a while, I just thought that like, people who did the same jokes over and over were like whack. In my brain, you should be able to think of some new shit that rocks every time. And slowly you get hammered down to you're like, you know what? You do have to work on the set.
Right. Yeah. So at what point did you start taking writing seriously like that aspect?
Probably maybe 6 months in, I finally realized that some of those jokes that work, I'm going to have to bring them back for the next show at the next place, if I'm going to survive. if anyone's ever going to consistently want to put me on stage.
Right.
And then probably a year in, a buddy of mine named Talent, who's probably the best host I've ever seen, he was like, hey man, you're really funny. You're naturally funny. And I see you out every night. You have the right work ethic. He said, you should get your own room, get your own bar show. And I went and got a spot that was probably half a block from my house called Two Steps Down.
Right.
Down Claremont and DeKalb, and the rest was history. Once I started hosting, it really separated me from my peers because you're on stage so much, not in the environment that I am now, because, when you're in a comedy club, like the Cellar, you're basically just keeping the show on time. But when you're hosting a bar show, you can do as much as you want.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? In between comedians, you can do all the time, and you really start to figure out what your voice is, what you're good at, what and that's when I start separating myself from my peers. And I work, man. Like I hate when people's, it's one of the most dismissive things somebody can say is John was always funny. What? What are you talking? You know what I mean? I fucking worked. I used to bomb like anybody else. Oh, you never. I bombed all the time. So I ended up eventually hosting 4 bar shows a week. And then of course that's just going to strengthen your muscles to the point that I was able to create some separation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And stop getting screamed at so much. And then the heckles stopped less and less. I did have one bad heckle on the way though. One time this lady, she screamed something I couldn't come back from. She came in and she had on this big ass mink coat and she's talking loud. And I was like, hey, there's a show up here. And I just never forget. Everybody on the show had rocks. So this show's going great. It's not like this is a bad crowd. Right. And she turned and she looked at me and she said, fuck you, bitch. I just, not like, hey, you're not funny, or where's the next guy? She grabbed her coat, she said, fuck you, bitch. And I was like, hey, lady. And I think I probably used to be 6'7". I think I shrank that day down to the height that I am now. Yeah.
Wow, it's hilarious. Like you talked about like the camaraderie like that you missed out at the moment with comics. Like, do you find it can be competitive though, the comedy world industry art?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, when you see some unhilarious motherfucker get a special or something like that, I think all of our hearts sink. Like, how in the fuck do you keep
Right.
Like Amy Schumer?
Amy Schumer?
Someone like Amy Schumer?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Don't say that.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
I fucking love Amy.
Okay.
We do too. A wink.
Yeah, we do too. We do too. Yeah.
No, I really do. I think Amy is one of the first of all, one of the toughest people I know. And also, man, one of the ballsiest people I know. I'll give you a prime example. We did this show at the Cellar one night. It's called The $1 Billion Show. Probably the best comedy show ever. And it's my boy Ryan Hamilton, and then Dave Chappelles went up next. After that, it's Seinfeld, and then Amy Schumer, and then Aziz Ansari, and then Chris Rock, and then Dave Chappelle. In that order. So just to get to the Amy Schumer point. So CNN screenshots my Instagram because I put that lineup in there. It goes zaps around the world. But that post on my Instagram at one point in time was the most popular post. But I remember for the first time being like, this must be horrible being a female comedian, because the comments underneath there, every once in a while somebody would diss somebody, but most of the comments were just taking shots at Amy Schumer.
Wow.
Like, that had nothing, first of all, no one saw the show.
Right. Yeah.
They don't know if she killed, they don't know if she just, I bet she had on fucked up clothes, or what was her hair? Amy's hair sucks. She sucks as a person. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? You know what I mean? I mean, comments that had nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah.
Just
people.
just physical. Yes. Yes. Just sad fucking people like you guys.
Wow.
Amy Schumer, I was like, this is horrible. Like I'm reading the thread, like this has nothing to do with nothing. I can't even fathom. But no, I personally love Amy. I think she's funny. And Amy has the Kobe Bryant work ethic.
Right.
I think most of this is toughness and work ethic more so than I mean, I think funny's probably about 20%.
Right.
But then the rest of it is, can you just keep chipping away?
Yeah.
Especially when you read a comment thread like that, I'm like, I would have quit. But yeah, Amy's one of the toughest human beings I know. Her and Leslie Jones.
So you were on a lineup with Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock that night?
I was hosting that show.
Wow. So, what could you talk to us about those two guys? And has any comic ever like at that level given you any advice or anything like that, or have they helped you in any way? Or
you know what? I think, man, at that level, like everyone kind of assumes you found your way. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So most of the time, you know, you're picking their brain about what their habits are and stuff like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But obviously, I mean, Chappelle is a workhorse. If I had to describe in one way, he's brilliant. But I mean, he's also a workhorse. And I think that when I watch Chris Rock, I think like he's a technician, but kind of a perfectionist type of technician. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This guy, you know, he's the kind of guy. You ever see those crazy buildings in like Dubai that are shaped funny or something? You're like, how the fuck did they build that? Yeah. When I watch Chris Rock work, I think like that. You know, like structurally and everything, it's beautiful. It's like, wow, you know, how did you remember that callback, or how did you bring all that, make all of that relevant?
Well, he's had some amazing specials on HBO over the years.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
killed it on HBO.
Yeah.
Yes. How soon we forget, because Chappelle's so hot right now. But Chris Rock dominated that space for a long time.
Right. Just curious, what did you think of Chappelle's latest 27?
You know what? It's so funny because on my Instagram page, I posted something that was really personal.
Right.
And I was actually trying to find something funny. I created this Jon Laster challenge that just is going viral.
Yeah.
Super viral. But I was looking for something funny to post. I just couldn't find it.
Right.
So it was kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say refreshing, but when I saw Chappelle along the same lines when his special came out, and you know, it made me think back to my post, like he probably couldn't find it either. You know what I mean? We wanted to say something funny and had this, that's so hilarious, but for Black men, it was such a dark thing. And I had a white friend, female friend of mine, and she said, oh my God, this George Floyd thing was the spark, you know, that set off Minneapolis and whatever. And I was like, you just don't even understand what you're watching. I said, George Floyd was the match. Right. The spark was all the times that we've been accosted by the police and nothing happened.
Right.
Nothing happened. So seeing that, and there's a scene in Minneapolis. I played ball for University of Minnesota a long time ago, but seeing this video of this kid with a skateboard breaks out the back window of this police cruiser. And that was kind of the beginning of Minneapolis going up in flames. But that wasn't because of George Floyd. That kid hit that cop car because something had been done to him before.
Right.
You know, many times before. And then he saw the George Floyd thing. The George Floyd thing was the match that gave him the anger to break a cop car window with a skateboard.
Right.
You know how mad you got to be to do that shit and not give a fuck?
Yeah.
That's more than one video worth of rage.
Sure.
That's a couple ass kickings worth of rage there.
Yeah.
Sure.
What do you see happening moving forward now with, like, I guess we've had protests and calls for defunding the police and stuff like that. Like, what do you see?
You know, I think it's a good thing because I think that for the first time, I think oftentimes, unfortunately, white people, when, you know, they think of police violence or something, even with the Eric Garner situation, because Eric Garner was choked to death on camera. It was the exact same thing. But unfortunately, I think so many white people, and a lot of them, I'm going to be honest with you, through no fault of their own. If you don't know, you don't know. Right. So always assume once the cops are there, you must have done something.
Right.
Fortunately, this time, white people, or unfortunately, had to sit through that whole George Floyd tape and say, no, he's on the ground. I don't care what he did. He was just on the ground. You don't get to just be judge and jury in broad daylight with a look on your face like, who cares, while this guy dies. So I think that it was kind of eye-opening. You know, it was almost like, you know, the kids, you know, like when you say police, most people get a picture in their head. Oh, guys that help old ladies across the street or show up if there's a melee. Black guys don't think of the cops like that. None that were raised in the hood. We think of them as a constant harassment, a constant source of headache. Right. If you're in the hood and you're younger. Obviously, I'm doing better now, so I'm not in that environment. But it's almost like if you say the word priest, you know, and then with the cops, we say, hey, the cops ain't shit. And then you got people, oh, blue lives matter. Oh, all lives matter. You know, you didn't say that when these little boys said they were getting fucked.
Right.
Nobody said all priests matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't see people say, oh, come on, the priests, get the fuck out of here. Right? People were like, oh, shit. There must be some bad freaks out here.
That's comic gold.
That could be a bit
for us Irish
guys. Nobody showed up with a T-shirt on that said "All priests matter." Get the fuck out of here. Fucking kids said they're getting felt up, man. Let's stop with let's get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when it was us and people were saying, "Oh, come on, the cops," some people have a different experience with the cops. Some people had a different experience with these priests. Hear them out. And that's what I try to do on my Instagram account, so that you can hear people's account, as few or as many as you want to go through. That way you can hear it from a different perspective. Nowhere in there does it say all cops are bad.
Right,
sure. No one ever said all priests are bad, but there are some bad priests.
Right, but a lot of the protesters do say that all cops are bastards.
Yes, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
Right, okay.
Wholeheartedly. I've never thought that, and I'll tell you this too. Most people who have come in that type of contact with cops would never say that.
Right. Well, yeah.
The people who are the ones being harassed know that, hey, I got a cousin who's a cop. I got a brother. All cops aren't bad, but don't be dismissive when we say that there are some.
Sure, of course. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and you shouldn't be able to fucking kill people and go home and eat.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, for days, or get off, or never be charged. Like the fucking, you know, the Eric Garner people, that was 4 years, 5 years later. We saw the video. That's all we're saying. Hey, man, you shouldn't be able to get away with that. And I hear people say, oh, come on, but cops save people's lives, whatever. Like there's some, you know, it's a false equivalence, because if that had been someone who had killed a cop, they would go to jail immediately. That was somebody who had if that was a white woman on the ground underneath his knee, that cop would have been locked up immediately. We're just saying, how come we don't get the same fair treatment? That's all.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So yeah, man, it's a different perspective.
So I want to read you a New York Times headline.
Oh,
okay.
Brooklyn comic fired from Atlantic City Casino for doing Trump joke. Can you,
what was that about?
What was that all about? Was that you?
Yeah. First of all, I don't know why they didn't say, and the audience was old as fuck. That's what they should have added that. Let me tell you,
well,
it was an old ass.
What do you expect from the Times?
It's an old ass crowd.
Right.
Old ass crowd. So they changed the booker because they got tired of the da-dum comedians, and they wanted a younger crowd to start coming to the casino. I'm not going to name the casino. I don't want to keep the controversy going.
It was the Borgata.
The Borgata, yeah. Yeah.
It's Dave. It's Dave.
the damn Borgata. So they say, hey, let's get some new blood in here, and they bring me down there. And they brought me down there for that reason. We want to change up what we're doing. We want it to be younger, hipper. Get some of those people over here to spend money at the Borgata. So it wasn't like I came in there, I just bogarted my way into some old folks' home and started doing. That's what they brought me down there for.
Right.
So day one, I do my shit. There's 50 people that walk out. First of all, I knew this was going to be a problem because when I tell you, I know people think I'm joking. The average age of the crowd, seriously, 70, 70, 75.
Wow.
I mean, there's people in there with oxygen, the little cars, you know what I mean? This shit right here.
Was Joe Biden with them?
Yeah, he might have been. You wouldn't have, let me tell you, he could have snuck in with them. Nobody would have noticed.
Wow.
He could have slid right in with them old motherfuckers. You would have never known.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, old. And I'm not talking about gray hair. I'm talking about there were silver-haired fucking people. Right. You know what I mean? Like this was their last outing. You know what I mean? And so day three, I knew it was going to be rocky because the first night I go in there and I go into this Trump joke. Didn't even get into the joke, right? Some guy in the crowd, he yells out. I hadn't been heckled in so long, but this guy yells out. I said, yeah, man, something, Donald Trump. And this guy just yells out, just a knee-jerk reaction. Hillary Clinton is the devil.
Yeah. Do you agree with that statement?
Do you agree, John?
Yo, whether she is or she isn't, can we wait till it's over?
Let me give my set.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
Hillary Clinton is the devil. And I was like, oh, here we go. So I get through the set. It goes great. And the crazy part is there's 1,000 seats in this theater. And you don't leave the casino, which means you're going to have to see these people on the casino floor the next day. I would say 8 out of 10 people are walking up to me like, hey, man, huge Trump supporter, but you were funny as hell.
Yeah,
nice. Cool.
Yeah, of course.
Second night, same thing.
Third
night, I get downstairs, and the security guy says, hey, man, we normally have the same like old white guys. It's kind of hacky. He said, so I invited my whole family. I told them, you got to see this guy. He said, I've been working here 20 years. That's the hardest I ever laughed, bro.
Yeah.
He said, and then he leaned in and he said, are you going to try those Trump jokes again tonight? And I said, you goddamn right. I got it right here in the bag, baby.
Of course, yeah. Good for you.
The funny part was, here's the craziest part. Because there were 40 or 50 people walking out every night, he told me what the average was, right? He said it's around 40 or 50. So you're talking 4%, the other 96 are sitting there laughing. So it wasn't this big breakup like people think. It's only 4 or 5% tops. But the funny part about the joke was I wasn't going to do it anymore. That was the last night I was going to do it because I had decided, you know what? Why don't we all just have a good time? There's no agents down here. Right. Last night I was going to do it. So I do the joke. There's 15 or 20 people that get up, but they won't leave. They just stay there on the side of the stage and they're screaming. He can't talk about our president. Why are you guys letting him stand there? And no, somebody go get somebody. He can't stand up there. And so I finished the set, but they're yelling. They are yelling the whole time over here on my left side, right? The show's over. They bitch to the manager, complain, and that night later, I think it was later that night, I get a call and they say, hey, John, we love you. Everybody loves you. You know?
However,
when the booker starts with that, you're in trouble. Hey, man, you're funny as hell. Everybody said you were funny. When they start with that, you know it's going downhill. He said, but they're going to use somebody else. And then he said, hey, don't worry, you can keep the room. They don't want you to leave. I was like, so the room started spinning because no one else has been fired, and you feel like, oh God, what have I done? It must be me. And then in the morning, I get a text from Hannibal Buress. Hannibal's the first one to hit me. He saw online, and I get a text at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and the text said, "I heard you got some open dates. I got a theater show in case you want to come do it tonight." And I was like, "Oh, thank you. I do got some open dates, motherfucker." But I fell out laughing. I threw my shit in the bag and kept it moving and got out of there.
Wow.
Is part of you maybe a little bit proud of that experience now because you stuck to your guns as a comedian?
Absolutely, absolutely. And at the time when I'm sitting there in the hotel room by myself, I had no idea what the sentiment was back in New York. Because when I got back to New York, the comedians, there was almost like a ticker tape parade.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, from comedians like, fuck them. You can say what you want to. And I didn't know because I felt alone, you know, obviously until I got up to Hannibal. And Hannibal, you know, he and I are in the green room almost crying, laughing because, you know, the stage manager guy is standing there with us. And Hannibal said, "Hey, man, we all good." So he closed the door. And I said, "Hey, man, I landed in you know, just the right spot for somebody who knows a little something about controversy from saying some controversial shit on stage." After that Cosby shit, yo. So we are we're in this theater dying laughing. Yeah. But then I realized that the comedy world had my back. That they weren't like, "Hey, you went down there and did something wrong." People were making up all types of rumors that were bullshit, and everybody was like, no, Jon's not the guy to come down there and just try to piss people off. It's not that type of comedian. So, you know, it must have been something on their part. And and then, you know, fortunately, like I said, all the comedians rallied. And the shit that I ended up with after being thrown off the show, if you were standing there and you were telling me, "Hey, you can finish this show, get your money, or you can get fired and take this basket of goods," I would fire me right now. Throw me the fuck out of here, because the upside was way better.
Yeah. And you got to speak about it a little bit more on the excuse me, on the Breakfast Club. Charlemagne the God.
Yes. Charlemagne's asshole, fucking Jon.
He went right into you right away.
Oh, he wouldn't let up. Come on, man. Tell us the joke. The joke is on my Instagram, you son of a bitch. Come on, Jon. Tell us the joke. Yeah. We'll set up a little stage here. Get the fuck out of here, Charlemagne.
Speaking of Charlemagne, Biden was on his show a few weeks ago, right? And he said, "Because if you don't vote for me, you ain't black."
Wow. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
What do you think of that statement? Jesus.
I mean, I get what he was trying to say, but he said that really inartfully.
Yeah, right? He's fucking 80 years old.
I mean, you know, the other thing, though, is Trump is such a demon that, like the little statements like that, you're going to get away with.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody's going to hear that and be like, "Oh, we got to vote for Trump now." You know?
Yeah.
Nobody. You know what I mean? So I was just like, dude, just go sit somewhere, Biden. You know what I mean? No, that's how we feel about Biden. Just go sit down. Yeah, let us do this. You know what I mean? He's like the uncle that's spilling shit in the kitchen. You know what? Come on, Papa. Just go sit. I'll pour it.
Yeah.
What the fuck is you doing, man? Yeah. You about to dirty the whole kitchen up, goddammit.
So if we could go back, can we go back in time a little? Because I'm curious, like, at what point did you start, like, boom, like making a solid living as a comedian? Like,
you know what, man? I got lucky early. So I was working a day job, telemarketing, and I was on stage at night, and I quit working. I would have been making way more money at the job, but I quit working just as I had enough money to pay my bills. So that was probably maybe 2 years in, 3 years in.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah, it was pretty quick. Like I said, the hood circuit paid more, but also there was a college agent, because I used to be squeaky clean, who was like, "Hey, man, you should start doing some of these schools with me." So I started doing a couple schools, and he was like, "These college kids love you. You know, you're physical, you're funny, whatever." So he decided to start managing me. And colleges pay a fortune compared to, you know, this little club money. So I was making money hand over fist shortly thereafter. Yeah. And then he got me booked at NACA, and I picked up something like 60 schools or something like that, and never looked back over the course of a year. But I mean, maybe more. It had to be more. Maybe 80, 90 schools. Because I remember I was making so much money that I would lose checks under my couch and all over the place. I was spending money like a psycho back then. But so I was living comfortably pretty early, man. Fortunately, thanks to Jeff Carroll, who was my first manager.
So, like, I'm just curious of what you just said about, like, in the early days you had kind of squeaky clean. You mean like so could you talk more on that and like give your opinions on, or do you have an opinion on, if you were advising a young comic, would you advise them to like be a bit cleaner, or does it matter to you, or what? You know?
I think that if you can, I think that you should be as clean as you can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be as clean as you can, because the reach of your audience is going to be far bigger if you are clean. Now, when I say as clean as you can, I don't mean be squeaky clean.
Clean like Bill Cosby was?
Bill Cosby?
Bill Cosby was
the genius. Early Bill Cosby. But seriously, early Bill Cosby, fucking amazing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Early Bill Cosby, squeaky clean.
Yeah.
And
not after the show, though.
Yeah, not after the show. Yeah. Right? You're like, and what did that get him? got him 20 to life. No, but early Cosby, fucking super clean. And you know who tried to emulate that was early Pryor.
Ah,
right.
So Pryor in his early days tried to be Bill Cosby until he lost it in Vegas. He's doing a show in Vegas, completely loses his shit, walks off stage, heads up north to hang out with Red Fox. And Red Fox says to him, "That's not you.
Right.
You can't be him." So that's why I say, be as clean as you can be.
Gotcha.
If that's not you, you're never going to succeed anyway.
Sure.
You're either going to go crazy or you're going to suck at trying to be someone else.
Right.
So if that's not you and you're fucking filthy, then you're filthy, and be as clean as you can be.
Gotcha.
And still be true to yourself.
And tell Bill, have a Coke and shut the fuck up, right?
And shut the fuck up. I don't know. Do they have Coke? Do they have Coke in prison?
Wasn't that on Raw? Eddie Murphy, like, tell him to, was it?
Tell Bill to have a Coke and shut the fuck up. Yeah. And tell him to kiss my ass. Yeah, he did say that. Yeah. But you gotta be as clean as I say, be as clean as you can be. But if you don't need a ton of curse words for a joke, then take them out. If it's not enhancing the joke, if it's not necessary, then take it out. But again, if you're not Bill Cosby, don't try to be that.
Right.
Either.
Yeah. Just to kind of double down on that question though, like I assume you're working with an agent, right? Or do you like have people in the industry, an agent or whoever who like tries to in any way give an opinion on your style or try to dictate how you should present yourself and all that kind of stuff, or do you not?
You know what's crazy about that is maybe back in the day, representation was that invested. Now, by the time someone goes to work with you, you know what I mean? Like my manager she knows what I am.
Right.
She's not gonna see me and say, "Oh, if he would just this, that, the other, then I would sign him." She was like, "This is what I like this."
Right.
And I believe this is sellable. Yeah. So the likelihood of your representation, you know, my agent would never say that. My manager would never say that. They like what I do.
Great.
So yeah. And my manager told me like people that she can't stand. I don't think she would ever sign them and then ask them to not do that.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
What's it like doing comedy sets on TV? Like doing sets, like is that?
It's been a while, but to be honest with you, I played. Comedy's not my first rodeo, so I played ball. Right. So to me, I already have a mindset for the the difference between practice and the game floor.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that my brain, by the time it was time for me to do TV, or do you one even better, for big moments, you know, in comedy, I think that my brain is trained to be ready to go to that next gear and be very comfortable. And there's, you know, like in all of the portals of comedy, like say, for example, and there's only a couple portals for us in this business, a late night audition or taping late night.
Right.
TV sets are a big deal. Maybe a JFL audition, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those moments, you got to be on.
Yeah.
You got to be at your fucking best, because there's just not that many that can alter your career. Maybe getting into the cellar, because you're going to be now mingling with, you know what I mean? You're having relationships now with people who are making big moves.
Right.
Sure.
So some of those things you have to be on point.
Yeah.
But I think from playing ball, I'm able to know the difference between practice, and then when the lights come on and some people panicked in the games, I was very comfortable.
Right.
In all of those things, like even in the stand-up NBC competition that I won 4 or 5 years back, in the finals, at the end of my set, I was thanking people. You know what I mean? Like I knew I had fucking nailed it, and I'd gone the night before to get ready, which also probably comes from my basketball preparation. Be more prepared than everyone. So I went to the same club that the show was going to be at the night before.
Right.
Leslie took me there. Bumped in the Spike, had a good time. So I knew where the light was. I knew what the stage felt like. I was completely comfortable when they said, give it up for Jon Laster. You know, obviously I end up winning that, but part of it was just, I know how to be ready to go to that next year, because I know that there's only this many portals in this business where you have to be on.
Sure.
Yeah. So how would you prepare for something like that? Like, do you have any rituals or habits to kind of get you in tip-top shape to kind of nail it?
Meditate.
You know what? I think that's what we do every night, you know, because I've seen people like before. After I won the stand-up NBC thing, I had to sit on the other side of the table, and sometimes people didn't know who I was. The following year, what you do is, since I'm now a judge, I would travel to the different cities and watch the auditions. Right. At the end of the auditions, they would put me up, last year's winner, so that the show, all these people are here in the club, but they don't want the show to end with one of them. So that I would go up and do 20 minutes. But I was there the whole time. So I would sometimes be sitting there in a room, and these guys don't know who the fuck I am in San Diego, or we would be in Chicago or somewhere. And there's all these comedians sitting in the room, and you would hear them talking. And sometimes I would overhear comedians like, yeah, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. You got to know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So is there something I do before? Fuck yeah. I'm prepared. I know exactly how long a minute is, exactly how long 2 minutes is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do preparation. Yeah. I mean, meditation or whatever. I mean, nothing like that. Or, you know, I'm not like, I go out and back and do some cocaine. No, none of that.
All right.
I do 2 bumps of cocaine, bang my head on the wall 3 times, nail it every time. Yeah. No, you know, I do 2 donuts in the parking lot, and then I'm ready.
Nice. Well, just curious, have you ever auditioned for SNL?
Never.
Damn, they should have you on that.
Never. I wish, man, I had been so. You know, people think that I've done a lot more than I have. I've never been on SNL. I've never been picked to do anything on Comedy Central. I've never been to Just for Laughs, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So some of these opportunities elude some of us, but you just got to keep digging, man.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us about your life, because you're a screenwriter as well, right? Like you write screenplays.
Yes, man. I've written 1 screenplay. That's actually, to be honest with you, the thing that I've been doing the whole time that we've been on lockdown. Because I knew that we couldn't be back to the cellar anytime before August, September. I knew that wasn't going to happen. So to me, I was like, this is enough time to do almost get a degree. You have 24 hours a day and you're getting paid for it for nothing. So I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking to myself, I'm sitting on my couch. I'm watching Cuomo and de Blasio say, hey, we got this thing under control. You guys can go back to work. I get on the train on my way back to the cellar. What would I be sitting there saying to myself? Damn, I wish I would have done that with that time. And the thing that popped into my head was screenplay writing. Mm-hmm. So I literally get up out of the bed and go on my computer and buy Judd Apatow's masterclass, so that there's no way that I'm sitting on that train on my way back to work and didn't have the structure of screenplays coursing through my veins. Right. So that's what I did. I took 2 master classes. I'm about to do a 3rd one because I don't think we're going to be able to go back to work for at least a month. But that way now I will permanently be able to take my ideas and pour them into the structure of a screenplay. I didn't want to be on that train and be like, damn, I should have. You know what I mean? I wish I would have. Yeah. So I spent hours, lots of hours studying.
Cool. And we don't want to pry because you can't talk about it probably, but the gig that hopefully will happen in the West Coast, is that like a TV thing or a?
Yeah, a TV writing gig.
Awesome.
That's for a TV show that I love. So hopefully, God willing, I'll be doing that. Nice. I mean, I can tell you guys, it's a great show too. It's The Last OG.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah. With Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. So hopefully I'll be ready.
Tracy Morgan's off the hook.
Yes.
He's a madman.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. But again, like I said, I don't know, get too excited until you know what I mean. Till we're in the room in LA.
Sure. And like, would you like to live there? You're open to that?
I love LA, man. Some people hate it, man, but I mean, I'm from Denver. My boys are still there. My brother, his family are still there. And if you're in North Hollywood, there's like billboards for flights to LA, $49, $100 round trip. They're everywhere. So I would be way closer to home. I love LA. If I had my way, I would be just making movies. I love film.
Sure.
And again, that's proven to be tricky from here. So yeah, I have no problem fucking moving to LA.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And who's the best comedian out there at the moment, do you think? Who's doing the best?
Oh man. I mean,
in your opinion?
Bill Burr, man, Chappelle. Chappelle is doing things now, man. I think that he's completely locked in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not trying to be anybody, impress anybody. I think ideally as a comedian, what we're looking to do is have a pure exchange. Whatever I'm giving, the crowd is completely getting. So it's, sometimes you're giving everything and they're just staring at you. So there's like 100 and 0 on this end. Chappelle is about getting everything. He is locked into a real pure exchange, man, with the people he's trying to convey his thoughts to. I think Bill Burr though is always been also one of my favorite. I fucking love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think those 2 guys right now kind of have hit their stride.
I used to love Patrice O'Neill.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was something else, that man.
Oh man.
His
Patrice, he had hit his stride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had completely found his comfort zone.
And then
and he reeked of it. But the funny thing about Patrice's special, man, is I watched the damn special. And
the elephant, is it the Elephant in the Room special?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a classic.
It's a masterpiece. Yeah. It's up there with Raw. Yeah.
I stood up and clapped in my living room. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. It was over and I was like, holy fuck. So, right. So a couple of days later, I bump into Patrice and I told him, I said, hey, bro, that shit you just dropped. And he said, hey, John, I really appreciate it. Because a lot of comedians, I've seen them since and they're not even saying anything. They're just like, hey, what's up? So he said, I appreciate you, actually, pouring the love. Man, that shit was a masterpiece. It was unbelievable. But yeah, Patrice wasn't like, he knew that it was the shit. But he said that, he was surprised that a lot of his comrades didn't just say, hey, that was unbelievable. That they, semi-downplayed it and didn't I remember him telling me that, but it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, yeah.
Masterpiece. Yeah, that's one of the greats of all time.
This is a bit random, but I just wanted to bring it up because you mentioned Cuomo and de Blasio. Like, you know, like if about a couple of months ago, Cuomo, like there was this thing on Instagram, I was seeing a lot.
Why are you talking about Cuomo?
No, I just want to get John's opinion on something, okay? This is like important. I want to get
I apologize in advance, John.
Just like I want to get an intelligent comedian's opinion. Okay. There was all this stuff on Instagram, like a lot of ladies were posting stuff about how they'd like to
have sex with Cuomo.
It's like, what did you think? Like, what is that about? Like, could you understand that, or was like, I'm trying to understand that, you know?
I think that there was all types of crazy shit going on because people are locked in the house. Yeah. I have never. Normally, I do these Sunday questions on my Instagram, so people can ask me anything, right?
Right.
But for some reason, the further along we got in the lockdown, the more it was just like, hey, what does your mouth do? Whoa, bitch. Like, what? Down, Sheila. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Sheila. You know, it was getting more and more graphic. And I think after a while, after you've not had any contact, because clearly some of these women weren't fucking, they were just like, you know, he's there every day. He's reliable, like women like. He's there at the same time. You know what I mean? It was probably almost like a date for them. Like, oh my God, my man is going to show up and he's going to be looking at me. No, bitch, he's talking to everybody. Yeah. What are you talking about? I think that if you're sitting in the house by yourself, eventually people that you know they're going to be there, like I was with the Sunday questions, like Cuomo was every day. Start to feel something for them.
Right.
You know? It's like Pornhub. It's there for us.
It's there. Yeah.
It's free.
Oh, which reminds me.
It's Cuomo.
John, thank you for bringing that up, because I saw. I think you posted on one of your stories last week, like some famous porn star loves you.
Oh yeah.
What's her name?
Dani Daniels, my favorite porn star.
Your favorite porn star?
My favorite porn star, Dani Daniels.
Could you speak a bit about your admiration for her?
Yeah. What do you like about her?
Oh, first of all, she's gorgeous. Her work is ridiculous. Go check out Dani Daniels on Pornhub. But she's also a good friend of mine. So I was joking.
She's a friend.
Yeah, she's a friend. But I love her. She's hot. But she was. Someone asked her in her Instagram stories, who are your favorite comedians? Right. And she said me, so I reposted her thing, and I was like, oh, I love you, I do. But she's fucking, Dani is
That's cool. Cool. I have to ask this because we ask every guest this. Would you take the vaccine? Will you take the vaccine? If you have to take the vaccine, yes or no?
I'll absolutely take the vaccine. I'm not a non-vacciner yet.
Okay, just wanted to.
Come on, man.
Come on. Well, some people have said no. I'm just saying. Yeah.
I know. Some people right out the gate are just like, I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, good on you. God damn it. Yeah, give me a shot. Let's keep it moving. Let's get this shit out of the way.
And I have a question too, and it kind of relates to Chappelle. To an interview he gave with Oprah Winfrey, maybe like in 2007.
Yeah.
He talked about black comics wearing the dress in Hollywood.
Yeah. Well,
would you wear the dress?
I'd have to see the check.
Brilliant.
Wow.
No. I more than likely would not. I mean, you'd have to give me like a real reason, but I know that there is a thing he's right about there being a thing to emasculate black men. You know what I mean? And I've had people in the business tell me that. You know, I had a very good friend of mine who was just having an honest conversation. He wasn't being demeaning at all. He was like, you know, John, part of the problem with you is, he said, the black guys that you see that slip through, he said, it's consistent, you know, for us white guys. And he happens to be a gatekeeper, semi-gatekeeper. He's a manager. He fucking owns parts of the business. Yeah. I don't want to be too specific. Everybody will know who it is. But anyway, he said, I like to think of when it comes to black guys, not white guys. He said, white guys, you could be Brad Pitt and people are like, oh yeah, book him. He said, black guys a lot of times come in the room, and the black guys that we let slip through the cracks. He said, if I'm sitting there with my girl and I look up on stage and I see Kevin Hart, I think, this is hilarious. Kevin's funny. My girl thinks it's funny. But he said, but I don't think that my girl wants to fuck Kevin Hart. He said, I don't think that my girl wants to fuck Dave Chappelle. You know, they're smaller guys. They're kind of meek, whatever. Patrice O'Neal, he said, too fat. Yeah. He said, if I go to a show and I'm sitting there and I'm laughing and my girl's laughing and I look up and I see Jon Laster, I'm thinking she wants to fuck him.
Right.
So how's that going to make me feel in the office? Should I get this guy or should I get Kevin Hart? He said, of course I'm going to book Kevin Hart.
Wow.
Told me right in my face. I never thought about that. And he said, does anyone think that you're not one of the funniest guys? He said, hey man, you closed all of my shows for the last 10 years straight. But he said, I'm just telling you what the mentality of a lot of guys, fair assessment. And it makes sense when you see a lot of, you know what I mean? A lot of, you know, it's a meeker, and not to say that Chappelle isn't beyond talented. He's deserved everything. Yeah. But he was just saying to me what the mindset is a lot of times with, hey, should we give this guy the role? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you do see a black guy that comes up through the ranks like that, oftentimes they came from where I came from, the hood circuit.
Sure.
They're so big that Hollywood says, bring them on.
Right.
You know what I mean? This guy's already done X number of movies with Spike Lee, a la Denzel, a la fucking Wesley Snipes. And now these extra mannish black men, but they're already stars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they had gone the other direction, maybe, I don't know if we want to book this guy. Let's get a smaller, whatever. But these guys come up through these black directors, whatever. They're already big time. Chris Tucker through Friday.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's too late. But Chris Tucker was never on fucking Comedy Central. He never got any late night spots. Right. You know what I mean? None of those guys did. They came, you know, through the back door.
Right.
Yeah. Which is essentially what I'm doing.
Well, I appreciate you answering that. I wasn't sure how to ask you because I didn't know how to ask you, but I want.
Bro, if there was ever a time to talk about these things, it's now.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all out in the open.
Yeah, for sure.
The Great Awakening.
Yes.
Yeah. If there was ever a time to talk about it, it's during the Great Awakening. Let's have these difficult conversations.
I'm going to ask a last broad question. Jon, can comedy change the world?
I don't know if comedy can change the world, and I think music is more situated to do that. Comedy, man, is so cultural, so nuanced. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's normally about what's going on in your, I don't want to say area, but there has to be some, do you know what I mean, that just doesn't I don't think it travels all the time like music does. You know, I performed out of the country and people just don't get some of the cultural, even as close as Canada.
Right.
I've done jokes about race in Canada. Canada's not anywhere near as racist as America, so they don't get it.
Right.
They didn't get it in Amsterdam.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I was in a club in Amsterdam at this party. No, I'm sorry, that was Montreal. And I was like, who the fuck knows this gangster hip hop? So I'm looking for the black guy that's DJing somewhere. It was a little Japanese girl.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they don't have near the racism. So a lot of the nuanced stuff that you need for people to be on the same page with comedy, I don't think it travels. And you got to think about it that, you know, people call America a melting pot. That's debatable. But it's way more of a melting pot than if you go other places. You try to do those same fucking jokes in China or Russia, people be like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah. Well,
and who let this nigga in here?
Yeah.
Like, how does black guy get here? So I think music is more equipped to do that.
Right. Fair play. Yeah. Any closing?
No, that's it. Jon, it was great talking to you.
Jon, it was amazing, man.
Thank you for being so magnanimous and, you know, open.
Thank you so much.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you guys, man. Appreciate you.
Have a great night. We talk soon.
Yes, you guys too, man. Thank you.
Upload this tonight.
We're going to upload this tonight, yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.
Okay, cool. All right.
Good night, John.
All right.